Hello and welcome back to another video. My name is Zach and this is my channel. So today I'm going to talk about the books that I read for the first month of 2024. I read a lot of books. I read a total of 9 books. My goal was to read 10, but I'll take 9. Okay, so first book is The Adventures of Amina al-Sarafi by Shannon Chakraborty. I'm pretty sure I got the pronunciation right. I chose this book because Ariel Bissett recommended it on her podcast, Books Unbound. And also, unrelated to that, my boyfriend bought me this for my birthday, which was super nice. He didn't even know it was on my TBR, but I have been wanting to read this book for a while. Here's a short synopsis from the internet. Amina al-Sarafi, one of the most notorious pirates to ever live, is retired and living tucked away with her young daughter in a remote mountainside. But when her old life and reputation catches back up to her, she finds herself back in action and surrounded by dangerous enemies and even more dangerous friends. So it was a pretty cool story, very swashbuckling, pirates, fun, adventure with also some heart to it. I really liked it. Some things that I liked about this book was that it had an older female main character, which is cool. I'm trying to diversify who I read about, and definitely I think that is kind of a minority main character, especially in the books that I read, so that was cool. I really hated the bad guy, but also I hated him when you're supposed to hate him, so that was really good. And the crew of Amina's ship were all so fun, and I don't know, I liked how they interacted, especially with her. They were really cool. Also, I liked the LGBTQ and trans representation in the book. I'm not going to give it away who's trans because that's kind of a plot twist in the book, but it is really good. It's cool. I just thought it was really fun. It was kind of like watching a Pirates of the Caribbean movie. It was just a really lighthearted and made me laugh a lot. And I also liked the setting. It was set in the Indian Ocean and kind of in the Arabic world, which is cool because I really don't know much about geography over there or the cultures over there, let alone it takes place in the 1600s, so that's different too. Things I disliked. Some of the pacing was a little bit off at places, and it just didn't fully capture my heart, but it was very good. So my final rating is 9 out of 10. I read Hans Brinker or The Silver Skates by Mary Mapes Dog. I chose this book because I saw it on the shelf, and also I liked a movie that was vaguely based off it called Silver Skates, which I watched on Netflix. I watched it a while ago, but I remember it being really fun and adventurous and having a cute romance. Also, I was in the mood to read something wintry because it's January. I was I want to read something with skating and ice and snow, because I also have been trying to get into skating, so I thought it would be fun. But yeah, this book is nothing like that movie at all. I think it was vaguely based on it, with the vibes, but that was about it. The book follows, these kids whose father is, mentally impaired from a fall that he had, and it's kind of about them. The 2 kids are named Gretel and Hans, which has nothing to do with, the fairy tale story at all. There's no real reference to it other than that's their names. So yeah, they're part of this family and their dad's mentally impaired, and it's about them skating and trying to get help from a doctor to help heal their dad. And there's also lost money, and they're really poor, and then when the dad gets magically healed, essentially they're yeah, he knows where the money is, the lost fortune for the family. But there's also a huge stretch of the book where it's just talking about these boys that are from the same village going on a trip. They just go on this long skating trip, and they buy some things, and they say hi to one of the boys' sisters, and it's just, I don't know, it has nothing to do with the main plot of the story at all.
What happened to the original plot of the movie? What happened to the original plot of the movie?
Also, there's this whole thing where there's trying to have a skating competition race to win fancy silver skates, and that's why it's called the Silver Skates. And yeah, Hans ends up winning them. Yeah, it was just a very interesting book. I wouldn't say that I really loved it at all, or I didn't hate it, but it wasn't what I was expecting, and I wouldn't really recommend it. I liked the setting, it was cool, the vibes were good, it was fun, the story was cute, but yeah, the things I disliked there was no plot half the time. It got to be kind of boring. I kind of just stuck it out because I was like, all right, I want to put this on my list of books that I've finished, and I'm already halfway through. And just nothing like the movie I watched, so I probably should have done my research to learn that. Final rating, 6 out of 10. Okay, the third book I read was The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I chose this book because it was a free audiobook on Spotify, and I decided it'd be good to listen to. That's literally all. I haven't read Sherlock Holmes books since I was like 9. I've always been a very prolific reader, and I don't think I fully understood them well then, so, you know, I think I've already read this book like way back then, but I don't remember it as well, because obviously it's been a while. Except I was listening to an audiobook. Read/listen. You know what I mean. Hound of the Baskervilles follows Dr. Watson and Sherlock as they take on a case in which a man has been murdered, and his heir, Henry Baskerville, fears for his own life as well, believing his uncle's death to be the result of a curse of the Hound of the Baskerville family. Okay, so things I liked about this book. It was interesting. It had the classic characters. Obviously, Watson and Holmes were very fun and interesting. And also the other, like, side characters, the Baskervilles and, like, the tenants that were staying at their house were cool to learn about. I thought it had a good plot twist. I just listened to it while I was working, so it was pretty chill. Some things I disliked is the old language made it kind of hard to engage with. And it didn't, like, 100% captivate me again, but it was fine. I was multitasking listening to it too, so it's hard to get into the story that way sometimes. And I don't think that that's the type of book that I'm ever going to, like, love. Like, I love fantasy, but I am trying to expand my horizons, so I thought it was a decent book. I rated it 7 out of 10. The fourth book I read was Jade War by Fonda Lee. And this book, oh my god, I loved this book. Because I'd read the first one, actually listened to it as an audiobook like a whole year ago, but I decided, you know what, I'm gonna read the sequel. Because I liked the first book, I just never got around to, like, reading the sequels till now. And yeah, that was a mistake because the second book was so good. Like, I burned through that book. I was so captivated by all of it. So if you don't know the Jade Legacy series, or Jade Bone series, it's about this island, this fictional island of Kacon, and there's the Call family, who is kind of like this gang, but they're also like sort of the government, so it's complicated. And they have a rival feud with another family called the Ite family, and they're all trying to get control of the capital city and the supply of magical jade that the Greenbones use to have magical abilities. Honestly, it's like complicated to explain, but it's really good. There's a ton of main characters. They're all super interesting. Call Hilo is my favorite character by far. There's like not even a question. But also Shay and like any of the Calls are my favorite characters. I loved them all. It's just really good. It was really funny. Yeah, things I liked, everything. The characters, they felt so fleshed out and really complex, interesting, and they changed over time with character growth. Like, the whole arc that Andy goes through from the very beginning of the series to the end, like, completely 180 on some things. It was so interesting. I liked that this book has stakes. Like, characters you love will die. There are many main characters though, so it works out well where like if one character you love dies, like there are other cool characters to follow, and the deaths always mean something and like add to the complexity of the plot and the character arcs of the characters around them. So it's not like needless deaths, and whenever you think like, oh, like this character's gonna die, obviously, then they don't, but it's subverted in an interesting way that actually also impacts the plot. So I don't know, it just really kept me guessing. It was a really good series. Things I disliked, literally nothing. I could come up with something I disliked, but that feels like disingenuous because I can't think of anything off the top of my head. Like, when I wrote down a bunch of notes when I like first finished the book and I couldn't think of anything then. Like, I loved this book so much. Rating 10 out of 10. This book I read was actually a short play, and it was called The Ghost of Slavery. I chose this book because I saw it when I was shelving magazines at work, and it seemed interesting. It was like in the Atlantic magazine, so I decided to check out that. It really wasn't a long book or play, but I'm gonna count it because I don't care. It counts. It's a whole play. The Ghost of Slavery is about like black struggles both within slavery and modern time with the prison system. It's based off interviews the author did with people, which is kind of interesting. I think she did interviews with like a lot of people who were reformed from the penitentiary system and like reintegrating them back into society and how that all works. I really liked the writing and the interview implication. It was really interesting and fun and meaningful, obviously, heavy stuff. Things I disliked is it's just a little hard to get into. Like, it's not a format I'm used to, and I just didn't love it because it's not like my absolute favorite type of book or topic, but it was good. So I rated it 8 out of 10. Sixth book that I read was Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee, which you already know why I chose this book, but obviously I absolutely loved the second book, so I had to read the final in the series, like, pretty much right after. I mean, I took a short break to read that play, but then I was like, okay, I'm back into the series. And I was kind of disappointed. Well, I don't know. I mean, the novel kind of follows, like, the calls, like, the next generation of people and, like, the kids of some of the main characters, and I didn't connect with them as well, just because it wasn't as centered on my favorite characters, and some of my favorite characters were dead. I just didn't love it quite as much. I don't think anything could really have fully lived up to Jade War, so I think that's part of it too. Like, I was just coming off this high of loving Jade War. So, Jade Legacy, I would say, it was good. I mean, I liked the characters, even though they weren't all my favorites, and like I thought the new characters weren't as good. And I liked the politics. It was really good, but yeah, it just focused more on the kids and I didn't like them as much. Final rating, 9 out of 10. The seventh book I read is I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. I chose this book purely based off the title. I mean, I saw it at the library and I was like, oh, interesting. I wonder what that's about. I bet it's a heavy book. I bet it's interesting. It looks kind of poetic. But I realized halfway through that I have actually seen a movie based off this book like years ago. It was so interesting and trippy to be like, wait, that feels like a fever dream. But yeah, that was definitely a movie and I watched it. And I know what's going to happen next in this book, kind of, but I don't remember how we get there. Brief synopsis. It's a horror tale about a girl who visits her boyfriend's relatives while she's thinking of breaking up with them. The story dissolves, and who knows what part of it was really real. It's disturbing and fascinating. Things I liked. This book was disturbing, but not disgusting. It was interesting, and it really got me thinking for like days and weeks after. Honestly, still, I'm thinking about this book. But it wasn't like, it didn't make me want to vomit. Which I found is a problem with horror books before, where I'm just like absolutely disgusted, and like I do not enjoy having that from a book. I thought that the writing was good. It was short. It was still scary. It's easier to make movies scary than books, but even though I'd already seen the movie and the movie did scare me, the book also scared me. Yeah, it was really like a good, fast-paced book too, and the dialogue was always really short. Like the syntax of that was cool. I'm sure someone could like literally analyze it much better than me, but yeah, I definitely liked the effect that it had. Things I disliked, it was disturbing. Like, it stuck with me. I don't want to give anything away too much, but yeah, it was very interesting to think about. I still think about it. I'm like, okay, but what really happened? Okay, who was real? Yeah, I mean, just based off the title, you can kind of guess that it deals with like suicide, but it also deals with like relationships, and it's kind of a play on words. It's interesting. My final rating is 8 out of 10. Okay, the 8th book I read is 100 Vicious Turns by Lee Page O'Brien. I actually own this copy of this book. Well, kind of. It's on loan from my friend. This is why I chose this book, is because my friend Kira was like, yo, you should read this book I got. So they lent me a copy. And it was pretty good, I'm gonna say. It was pretty good. It has a cool cast of like queer characters, and it had some like cool dark academia vibes. Brief synopsis: the heir to an arcane bloodline, Rat, must outwit their ambitious rival to stop a ruthless magical adversary. So, interesting. Things I liked. There was a non-binary main character named Rat, which is kind of cool. So a lot of queer characters, which is cool, but romance isn't really the main focus of the plot, which I also really liked because, yeah, romance can, like, sometimes feel, like, very over prevalent. Even though I do like romance, it was interesting to have a plot where romance just is not really much of a thing. There's, like, a brief mention that Rat has a crush on someone, but, you know, it never really went farther than that. I assume it will in, like, later books, but, you know, it wasn't too much of a focus, and I thought that was cool. It mainly focused on, like, the mystery of, like, what's happening in the school that they're going to with this magic. The magic was also really cool. Like, there's these dead passages, they called it, that Rat could see, and they could, like, travel through these passages to other worlds / to other places in their current world. Things I disliked was the narrative structure was just hard to follow because, like, the main story evolves around something that happened before the story even began, and I do kind of wish there was a prequel book just saying everything that happened then instead of, like, having that be, like, a mystery to the reader that you find out through it, because it was just confusing. I do wish that, like, the side characters were introduced more separately because I often mixed them up and I didn't understand, like, okay, what's unique about this character? Why should I care about them? But it was good, and, like, when everything came together at the end, then I understood and I was following it well, but just towards the beginning and the middle of the book, there's a section where I was like, I don't know what's happening, I'm a little lost, I'm a little bored, but overall, it was good. I rated it 7 out of 10. And this is part of a trilogy, but I'm not gonna be finishing this series. Even though I liked the first book enough, I just didn't like it enough to finish it unless someone tells me that, like, the second and third book are amazing and expand this book way beyond. Alright, the 9th and final book that I read was Stardust by Neil Gaiman. This book I actually own a copy of now too, but it's not mine to keep either. This book was recommended to me by my friend, not Kira, but another friend. They gave it to me a while ago, so I was kind of just like, okay, I need to get around to finishing this. So I finally did. It was pretty good. They lent it to me because I said that I wanted to read more Neil Gaiman stuff. I really loved Good Omens. We both did. We bonded over that. And I loved the show Good Omens. Although I haven't seen all of season 2 yet, so please don't spoil it for me. But I do like Neil Gaiman's writing, and this book was pretty good. Brief synopsis from the internet says, in this fairy tale for adults, Tristan Thorne goes into Fairy to get a fallen star for the girl of his dreams. He goes into Fairy thinking he'd find a rock, but finds out the star is a girl. On the journey back, Tristan has to ask himself if Victoria really is his true love. Things I liked. It was super easy to read. Like, I read this in, like, 3 days. Like, it took me forever to get around to starting it, but once I did, it flew by really fast. Like, just the writing style, it just kept me engaged and kept me, like, reading to the next page. Pretty funny. There's, like, some silly moments. Obviously this book I read the most recently, so it's, like, fresh in my brain. I literally just finished it today. Like, there's some moments where, like, one of the witches, who's a character in this book, like, turns people into animals, and it's just funny, and I thought it was interesting how it talks about love and, like, your true heart's desire, and how, like, it comments on the over-prevalence and desire of love in society over other things, I think. It had, like, good stock characters. I will say the characters didn't have a lot of depth, but the way that they interacted was funny and cool, and since it was such a short book, there really wasn't much time to get into the characters that well, but yeah, it was good. It was good. Things I disliked is, yeah, the characters were a bit one-dimensional, and, like, the stakes felt very weak. It was just very light-hearted and fluffy. So overall, I just didn't love it, but I did like it, and it was pretty good. So I'll give this book a rating of 8 out of 10. And with that, that concludes my January reads. Like I said, if you don't read as much as me, please don't feel bad. This is actually kind of a lot for me too, because I read 2 of the Jade Bone books, and those were both, like, 600-page books. Yeah, I would ideally read more books than this, but with just those lengthy books, I couldn't. yeah, so that's all the books that I read in January. Let me know in the comments what books you read and what books you think I should read next based off the books that I've said that I have read and enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what your thoughts were on them. See you in the next video. Bye!